Time for a look at our top stories for you this Tuesday. Opening statement set to begin this morning in the federal firearms trial of Hunter Biden. President's son accused of lying on federal gun purchase forms when he said he was not addicted to drugs. He has pleaded not guilty to 3 felony charges.
Senator Roger Marshall is taking action against President Biden's judicial system following the jury's guilty verdict in former President Trump's hush money trial. Marshall and 7 other senators signed a letter seeking to block the Biden administration's judicial nominations until Election Day. In addition to blocking nominations, those senators also want to block any increase to non-security related funding for the administration.
President Biden set to announce an executive order to curb illegal immigration. The president's order would shut down the southern border to asylum seekers crossing illegally when there are more than 2,500 crossings in a day. The executive action would also allow authorities to turn away migrants either to Mexico or their origin country.